Hello, digital medicine enthusiast. I'm Dr. Jennifer Joe, Chief Ambassador for JMIR Publications. Today, I am delighted to interview Dr. Jim Hodnack, staff scientist in the Advanced Visualization Branch of the National Institute of Nursing Research, on his recent methodology published in JMIR Research Protocols. Dr. Holnack's piece is titled Usability and Effectiveness of Immersive Virtual Grocery Shopping for Assessing Cognitive Fatigue in Healthy Controls, Protocol for a Randomized Control Trial. Thank you, Dr. Holnack, for sitting down with us.
Thank you, Dr. Joe. Delighted to be here.
Cognitive fatigue is a common human experience that can result in serious mistakes or accidents. It can become a debilitating and life altering experience for individuals diagnosed with chronic medical conditions. Dr. Holnack, can you tell us why your team decided to study cognitive fatigue and why it's important to healthcare?
Cognitive fatigue is an interesting area of research because it really crosses a broad range of disciplines. You see research going back 100 years, really, for individuals in psychology and medicine and human factors and engineering, all very interested in this topic because it so impacts people in a daily life. It's something that everyone can kind of connect with and have had that experience, so they understand when you talk about it. So it's a common experience that people have, but when it gets out of control for some individuals due to their chronic medical condition, it can be a life altering situation. It affects all aspects of life. And for me personally, I had seen this with my stepmom. She had suffered with MS, and doing a simple task like, oh, we need to go to the store and get X, Y, and Z, and then she'd come back and she'd have to sleep for a few hours because it really took a lot out of her. So, and the other factor is that the NINR is particularly interested in research related to symptoms that go across conditions, and they've developed a new symptom science center. So we thought it'd be an excellent opportunity for us to collaborate with some of our experts at the NINR.
In this paper, you describe your planned protocol. Phase one is a user experience study for testing the software functionality, the user interface, and realism of the virtual shopping environment. The goal, as laid out, is to assess the experience of user interface difficulties. The paper reports that data collection should have already begun. Have you moved into phase one yet? Can you tell us how it's going and what you've learned so far?
Yeah, we had an amazing response to our posting for the subject. The protocol had opened up. We had just over 100 people. We want to participate. We want to participate. So it went very well. We completed our 24 subjects using a stratified random protocol, meaning that each subject, each cell had the same number of individuals. So we had the same number of older adults in the experience 3 as younger, and males and females. So it was perfectly matched. And so that part is now being processed. We're looking at the data and trying to make some decisions about how we move forward. The highlights from that really is that, we were able to teach a wide range of individuals from a wide range of backgrounds how to interact with the environment with some fairly sophisticated controllers. And, what we really found is that our older adults did catch on, they just need a little more time. So for the next phase, we'll just increase our training time for everyone just to make sure when they go and do the real shopping that they all have the same level of comfort going into that. And it's more of a recall issue, just remembering what button does what, that they loved it. We had some people saying that it energized them. So the idea is that 30 minutes of VR is a lot, but so they're like, I want to do more. I want to do more. So it was really great to see that. For some individuals, and I think one of the biggest surprises for me anyway, was that experience one where you don't really have a task, you're just kind of in the environment, was causing the most problems. So people were feeling a sense of boredom and just kind of like, oh my gosh, yeah, and they actually ended up having, more symptoms than you would expect and compared to the other conditions. So we're working through on how to, maybe make some small changes to that condition to make it a little more appealing and more interesting to folks.
Phase two will use a 3-armed randomized control trial to determine the effect that the immersive environment has on fatigue. Participants will be randomized into one of three conditions with increasing levels of stimuli to induce cognitive fatigue. My understanding is the first experience is usually a calm shopping experience with no specific task to complete, like maybe roaming around the grocery store early on a Sunday morning, even though your refrigerator is fully stocked. The second is supposed to be a standard shopping experience, maybe like during the weekday while planning your meals for the next 2 days. And the third scenario is supposed to be incredibly tiring and emotionally frustrating. Maybe like getting the Thanksgiving dinner shopping list for mom and told to go get all the items the day before Thanksgiving. For me, that's been insane.
No doubt, no doubt.
It's busy. There's
Yes.
lots of missing items,
Yeah.
crowded aisles, and lots of noise. Can
Right.
you describe how you'll run the participants through these three arms and what you'll measure in these three scenarios?
Sure. So the way the protocol operates, and we've had to make some slight modifications to it based on our user experience study, in that everybody comes and does consenting, and they fill out some questionnaires, and then they go into the VR and they do a brief task. It's just a pill sorting task to see how quickly they can sort pills. And that's based on a standard test and used in psychology forever. And its properties are well known. And then once they complete that, they go into the shopping training. So everybody's doing the same thing at the same time. And before they get into VR, I just want to make a note. Something that we learned is that we really had to teach people the controllers before they went in VR, because they can't see them once they're in VR. So we spent a lot of time teaching this button does this button does this, right? So everybody gets that. So everybody's comfortable before they go into VR. So once they go into the training, everybody gets the same training, and we'll expand it a little bit for phase 2. And then just have a few more items for them to purchase so they get more comfortable with it. And then they go into the next phase, which is they are randomized into 1 to 3 conditions. So before they even get to the NIH, already know that they're going to be in either experience 1, experience 2, and experience 3. Like you said previously, experience 1 is just a real, just look around, do whatever you want to do. You don't have a task. Experience 2, we read a scenario that they're shopping for a sick friend, and they have this shopping list, and that they should buy everything on the list. And then in experience 3, we tell them they have the shopping list for their friend, but they might get texts and other things might happen, so that they have at least a little bit of awareness that they're going into a slightly different environment. And these are all randomized, and no one knows ahead of time. So prior to entering that, they fill out what's a fatigue scale. It's just 13 items, and they rate how they're feeling at the moment, because we want a pre-measure and a post-measure. Then they go through 30 minutes of the store. This is the other thing we found out, is that if we were stopping them 15 minutes in, because usually in fatigue protocols, you stop them partway through to see if it's changing partway through, it was too disruptive and people are in a process of learning and interacting. So we reconsidered that part of it. They go through the shopping experience, and then they do the same questionnaire again, which is how are you feeling right now? What are your symptoms? Are you tired? And those 13 symptoms. And then there's another questionnaire that they complete. Then it's called a workload, and it's really to understand what parts of the task were difficult. Was there a lot of mental challenges or frustration, things like that? And then they complete the kitchen processing speed task again, and so we can compare if their cognitive skills have changed from time 1 to time 2. And then outside the VR, they complete a symptom questionnaire before they go into VR and after VR, to see if VR itself maybe is causing some eye strain or things like that.
You developed this protocol specifically to research cognitive fatigue. How do you think it will be used to research cognitive fatigue?
The plan is that we need to do some refining, because anytime you develop a technology, there's a lot of feedback you get from users, and users are really quite variable in how they interact with the environment. So the plan is really for the first 2 studies to really establish the interface, to establish the environment, to see if we start getting the expected results, which we are in even with the user experience study. However, we need the second study, the larger study, to really say, oh, yes, indeed, that these are kind of in line with our hypotheses. Once those studies are completed, we already have many individuals throughout NIH that are interested in applying this this VR technology and particularly this fatigue protocol with clinical populations. So we see the next phase as engaging with other researchers, allowing them to run some of their subjects who are also in cognitive fatigue protocols or fatigue protocols through our protocol, and really trying to nail down what factors are related to fatigue and in the clinical populations, say, versus then a typical population that doesn't have any chronic medical conditions.
What type of feedback are you hoping to receive from the greater scientific community by publishing this research protocol?
Well, I think it's twofold. One is all along the way, we've gotten feedback from experts who have done things in VR and those outside of VR and challenged us to say, is this really the best approach? Is 30 minutes really, a valid amount of time to be in VR? Is this, pretty much challenging, is this really going to work? And, part of it is, VR has limitations, and part of it is, things like this usually, haven't been done a lot. So it was good to hear from a lot of different perspectives. And in particular, so with VR, it's not just, you can design something. You need feedback from engineers. You need, graphic designers. You need folks from all different types of professions say, hey, did you think about this? Did you think about that? You're going to, create issues if you don't do it properly. So that was really nice to hear. And get a lot of feedback early on. It was very helpful. And also it allows us, to go into more detail and talk about some of the things that, we were thinking when we created this. And even in the article, we talk a little bit about, some of these factors around design and engineering that are so important that if you don't consider them before you kind of jump into a VR type protocol, that it may not work as expected. So I think it's a great opportunity to really have an open discussion about, the pros and cons of VR and how do you overcome them? How do you work with, individuals from a broad set of disciplines to create something? And, we're pretty proud of what we've created. It's been a like a real engineering feat, I guess you could say, but we're excited about it.
This is Dr. Jennifer Joe, JMIR Ambassador. I want to say a big thank you to Dr. James Holdneck, staff scientist at the National Institute of Nursing Research, Advanced Visualization Branch, for allowing me to interview him on his recent research protocol and JMIR research protocols called Usability and Effectiveness of Immersive Virtual Grocery Shopping for Assessing Cognitive Fatigue and Healthy Controls, Protocol for a Randomized Control Trial. This is a unique design for new and emerging digital tools. Dr. Holdneck, big congratulations on the innovative protocol for using VR grocery shopping to create controlled environments for studying cognitive fatigue. I can't wait to see how you accelerate our understanding of cognitive fatigue. To read the full protocol and other great research, be sure to go to jmirpublications.com. As a reminder, all articles are open access, meaning they are free and available to any user anywhere in the world.